Welcome back, 3D students. In this video, we're going to texture our objects and apply UVW mapping in the final preparation for exporting them for Unreal Engine. As you can see, I've imported or merged all my objects in here, all the gravestone type objects that we created, into one file. And there's a couple in here that you did not create, in particular this one, but all these others we did create together. There are a couple that are not in here, the lantern, the pumpkins, the candle, none of that is in here, but those can just be separate files. But you should still prepare them the same way that we're preparing these from this point. In other words, put UVW mapping on them and make sure the pivot point is in the correct place. You can create materials in Unreal Engine, but they still have to, the objects would still have to have UVW mapping on them in order for the texture to behave correctly. So let's get started. In the assignment for this part of our project, you'll find a link that directs you to download two seamless granite textures that I created for you in Photoshop. Once you download that file, you'll see it in your downloads as a zipped file. Double click it and then open that folder and you'll see two image files in there. These are the granite textures. And then you need to open up a new Explorer window by hitting Control-N on your keyboard. And then in that new Explorer window, you need to go find your project folder. Mine is on my external hard drive in a folder called Scratch. Yours may be something different. We open up the Scene Assets Images folder, and then we take those two files and we drag them in there. Now, as you can see, I already have them in there, but you would just drag them in there, and then you can close that window. Once they're extracted, we can open up the material editor and open up that folder that we extracted to, select each one, and drag it into the material editor slate. Now we can use them. Now we're going to create an interesting material here. We're going to use something called a mix map to mix two things together. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute. Let's start with a physical material. And we could just connect this directly to the base color node, but we're not going to do that. We're going to mix some noise into this to make it look a little more natural. So drag off of the base color map node and go to General, Mix. And then we have color 1, which is going to be the texture. And then color 2, we'll drag off of that one, and that's going to be general noise. Now, if you double click on the noise preview swatch, you can see what that looks like. It just looks kind of like clouds. If we click the noise map and come over here to its settings, and just click and drag on the size slider, you can see what effect that has on the noise. If you click fractal, you'll see that that changes the type of noise. Turbulence is another type of noise. I think fractal is probably good. And if you change the high-low numbers, like if we make this one 0.7, say, and make this one 0.6, you can see what that does. And you can play around with this to get different looks. That doesn't work very well, but you can see. Now we're not going to do that. I think this should be 0 and this should be 1 like it was by default. Just trying to show you that you can play around with it. You can also change the phase of the noise. If you click this, you can see that the noise is going to change how it looks. So I think the only thing we're really going to play around with in this case is the size of the noise and whether or not it's fractal or regular. Let's also remember to select the material and kill the reflections, zero that out, and then make roughness 1. Now let's apply this to one of our objects by clicking the output node and dropping it on one of the headstones. And you can clearly see that that does not look correct. And it would look the same in Unreal if we did it in Unreal. That is because this headstone does not have any UVW mapping on it. So let's open up the modifier list, and we're going to scroll down here and find UVW map. And we're going to make it a box map, and you can clearly see that that works very well. except this part is not good. Remember, the box has to be square. So let's make the length and the width and the height all the same, 50, 50, 50. And you can see that looks pretty good. Now let's disconnect the noise here from the material and see what effect that has. Not much. That's because if we click the mix map, you can see there is no mix amount here. If we drag that up to, say, 50, then you can see that that's 50% this and 50% that. So let's just go from there and drag it down and get different looks. Can also come into the noise here, click that one, and we can change the size of the noise. You can clearly see what that's doing. And that's also a way for us to make each one of these a little different, but we'd have to make a new material for each one. Let's take this whole setup here. Let's collapse this. Hold down Shift and copy it. And then let's take this granite map that's on it and delete that, and then we'll just connect this one into here. Now we've got a new material. Let's apply that one to the one next to it. And we're going to have to put a UVW map on it as well. I'm just going to hit U and V as I'm bringing up the modifier list. Make that a box, and we're going to make it 50 by 50 by 50. And you can see those two look different. And that's exactly what we want. So we need to repeat the process for each one of our headstones. Apply one of the materials to it, put a UVW map on it, make it square. Okay, so I've done all of my gravestones here. You can see I really don't need this guy anymore, so let's delete him. I haven't done anything to my fences yet, but they do need UVW maps, so let's put that on there. Oops, wrong one. Make it a box. Make it square. And then I'm just going to copy this UVW map like this and paste it on this one. Okay, now everything is prepared. So what I'm going to do now is take all of this and convert it to an editable poly to permanently apply all the modifiers in the UVW mapping to each object. Right click, convert to editable poly. Now if you click everything, you'll see the only thing there is editable poly. Alright, that's it for this step of the process. Don't forget to save your file, and when we come back, we will export them as a Datasmith file and import them into Unreal Engine. And I'll see you then.